the main place to start is to, one, get comfortable paddling, and two, get comfortable sitting up and down on your board. And the faster you can do those two things, it can shave off 5 years of learning how to surf. I started to realize that there's magic spots all over boards that will allow the board to feel in a different way, because it's not just moving up and down the board that makes a board move dynamically. It's so much with the side to side, where our feet are on either side of the stringer. And there's so much to play with there that it's just fun. I encourage people to just start to explore it, of moving their feet in different places. I think surfing can kind of be like a golf swing. You can't focus on 10 different elements at once. Well, at least when you're on the wave. But for someone that's in the earlier stages, I always like to help people develop their paddling skills as their ticket to freedom. Because if you can't paddle efficiently and you're exhausting yourself, your ability to catch waves is minimized. Your ability to have longevity in the session is minimized. And if we just lay down on a board and try and start paddling on our own without any idea of the technique that is involved, it can be such an exhaustive exercise. But if we learn to paddle with our entire body and engaging our core and our pelvis and our legs into the paddle and our whole back line into the paddle, then it can become more of an endurance, almost like a runner's swimmer's stroke, where unless you're at a full out sprint, you can paddle for hours. And that's the goal, is to be able to develop technique. And then with the right technique, you can develop the muscle endurance for it. But I feel like that's always the main place to start, is to, one, get comfortable paddling, and two, get comfortable sitting up and down on your board. And the faster you can do those two things, it can shave off 5 years of learning how to surf. Because if you're catching 10 waves instead of one wave a session, think how many sessions it would take, to get that experience. But as you take that further and you start paying attention to different elements, for me, what's always helped be a benefit is choosing one thing to focus on for a session, whether that's your back arm or your breath or your front foot, or it depends on the waves and the board that you're on, or whatever, if it's a certain maneuver. But every surfer will tell you oh, I wish I could have that wave back, because you're never quite going to get that same opportunity again. Right. And a surfer that does airs might only get 2 or 3 attempts in a session. So the practice and repetition part is, I feel like that's the big challenge of surfing, is that it's really hard to kind of get that repetition. So if you simplify the progression into elements that you can focus on for each session, then I think that it really helps develop the muscle memory that it takes in order to ride a wave successfully, and to learn to move your feet into the right position of the board. I think that that's the biggest key of surfing and unlocking people's surfing, is unlocking your feet. Because if your feet are in the same place the whole time, good luck. Even if you're on a shortboard. If you watch the shortboarders that are really good, their feet are never staying in the same place. Even if they're moving that much, there's always going to be an adjustment, because same like a skater, you don't see a skateboarder keeping their feet in the same place to do every trick. They're constantly moving their feet. So I would say if you're, wanting to increase your surf ability, really put some emphasis on your feet and moving them around.
Any tips on getting those feet moving? I get a lot of people asking me saying, I can't move my feet. What would you recommend?
I would say you don't have to do it in a public space. Do it in your bedroom or in front of a mirror and pretend like you're surfing. Like literally visualize yourself on the wave and then start moving your feet. And it's like just a super quick, like weighting and unweighting off of each foot in order to shift it into the place where you want to be. And the reason why we need to move our feet is because unless you're on like a tiny shortboard that has a super narrow tail that your foot reaches from side to side of the rail, then the leverage that you need in order to turn the board is only going to be able to be controlled by shifting your foot into the position. But even people with big feet, that their feet still stretch the whole, or go from rail to rail on the tail, they're still moving their back foot, because there's speed that you can get from bringing the foot forward, but you lose the turnability. So if you want to do a hard carve, you have to go up the face of the wave with your back foot a little bit more forward. And then as you're transitioning back into the carve, that's when your back foot slides back as far as you can get it, depending on the board, to the tail in order to turn it. So I would say like practice just barely moving your feet. It's almost like a dance move. Most of surfing and shortboarding, you're a little bit more equal in your weight distribution, and it's almost like you're going forward and back on your feet as you're going down the line. If you're pumping, you're almost like pumping with your front foot, and then when you're turning, you're more like going on your back foot. Whereas if you're on a longboard, if you lean forward, the thing is probably going to shoot out behind you, or you're going to lose momentum, or you're going to press the board into the wave, and it's not really going to go the way that you want. Almost the whole time when you're longboarding, you're leaning over your back foot, and your center of gravity is set back. And I feel like between the shortboard and longboard realm, it's kind of a free-for-all for how the body weight gets distributed in order to execute different maneuvers or different postures and whatnot. But I would play with just moving the back foot closer to the front foot and then shifting it back, narrowing your stance and then widening your stance as you're on the wave. And usually the middle of the board is the fastest part of the board. Right. So if you're shifting your back foot up more to the middle of the board, then that's kind of more of a speed maneuver. If you're shifting it back, you're on the brake. If you're on the tail or if your back foot is on the tail, then you're pretty much on the brake, or you need to be turning. But if you're leaning on the back of the tail, then it's picking the nose up. Oftentimes I'll see people ride the board solely just from the back, and the front of it is almost bouncing in front of them. So you want to make your turn, whether it's a bottom turn or a top turn, and then move your feet more towards the center of the board. It takes time, but it's telling yourself, move your feet. It's literally, there's so many mental cues that I feel like happen in surfing, of like, you have to tell your body to do what it is that uh, you want to start doing. And then once you develop the muscle memory, it kind of goes more like, oh, I'm going to go to the nose, or I'm going to turn, or, and your feet just automatically go into the right spot. But um, the learning curve of that, I feel like, can be shortened if you learn to move your feet as soon as possible
Right.
in your surfing journey.
Right. And you're well known for riding everything, logs, bid lengths, shortboards, and all that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
do you think riding that variety of surfcraft it's probably enhanced? I mean, it just really trained you to move your feet a lot, right? Because you're riding a log, you're just
Yeah,
constantly
sure.
moving it back and forth. So,
Yeah. I grew up riding both longboards and shortboards in Florida, and developing, learning how to crosswalk, um, and finding different places on the board that allow you to feel like you have control and speed and whatnot. And then once I started riding more single fins and eggs and fishes and all sorts of things, you like I started to realize that there's like uh, magic spots all over boards that like will allow the board to feel different in a different way. Um, and like on a fish, like you can still nose ride a fish, and as long as your back foot is closer to the inside rail, like you can hold strong and haul ass. You can go really really fast. Um, and so yeah, I think it's taking whatever apparatus you are drawn to, whether it's longboards or shortboards or foam boards. Especially when people are starting, I love it when people ride foam boards, because it takes the danger element and like squashes it, or like significantly reduces it. And you, I can still hang five on a soft top.
oh yeah.
I have friends that like ride Waimea on a wave storm. Um, I wouldn't highly recommend it, but it's doable. And I feel like there is such a place in like the surfing learning curve that people would benefit a lot more from if they spent more time in their early development of surfing, riding a soft top that like kind of takes the danger element
Right. It's like going slow to go fast.
away. Yeah, exactly. And if you can learn to turn a soft top, then once you get on a board that like zips, then it's like going back. If you're throwing a medicine ball, or a heavy weighted ball, and then you go to throw a light baseball, like it's gonna feel like nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of that for me, like that's what longboarding did to my shortboarding. It made it so much easier to like move the board around once I learned how to like move up and down the board and then side to side, because it's not just moving up and down the board that makes a board move dynamically. It's so much with the side to side, where our feet are on either side of the stringer. And there's so much to play with there, that it's just fun. I encourage people to just start to explore it, of moving their feet in different places. And if you can think about it in like kind of like a seesaw mentality, then if I have way too much weight on this side of the rail, and if you're kind of skiing the board, it's going to make the board operate differently. So it's trying to pay attention to where our feet are, as much as possible. And then once we're paying attention to where our feet are, recognizing, if I want to do a bottom turn, where does my back foot have to be? And then if I want to do a top turn right after that bottom turn, what do I need to do with my back foot in order to make that turn happen? Because even though your foot may only shift that much. It's the difference between you doing a really nice turn or just like flopping over.
Yeah.
And the minute differences are wild, and it takes a lot of time and practice to develop that muscle memory. But the more you tell yourself to start moving dynamically and trying to find new places on your board, I think the quicker it'll continue to allow you to create speed to find new ways to move on the board. And even though the technique that it takes to ride a longboard and a shortboard and a mid-length, they're all very different. They all have very similar core values.
Do you struggle with your paddle power? Well, I can go months without surfing and roll to pumping waves and surf 3-hour sessions multiple times a day after day after day by using the Basis Paddle Trainer. It was a total game changer for me, and it can be for you too. These things actually work, unlike elastic resistance bands. You can train your paddling anytime, anywhere, so you can catch more waves and have more fun. Just 10 to 20 minutes a couple times a week, and you're gonna be in insane paddle shape, right? So remember, the key progression is more waves, and the key to more waves is more paddle power. Check it out at surfbasis.com. You're gonna be stoked.